Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I have the pleasure of introducing today Padraig Walsh from the Hong Kong-based law firm Tanner De Witt. Padraig is a senior partner in the firm, specialized in data protection and more. He will introduce himself in a second. And it's a great pleasure for me to welcome him today because he was also in the past the chairperson of PrivacyRules. And so he's one of the fundamental members of our alliance. Padraig, we are going to converse with you today in our PrivacyEspresso series because there was a recent enforcement action in Hong Kong addressing the critical infrastructure sector. So we would like to learn more about that from you. But first and foremost, can you introduce yourself to our audiences?
Certainly. So my name's Padraig Walsh, and I lead the TMT practice at Tanner De Witt, which is an independent law firm in Hong Kong. So in that practice, I cover all areas relating to technology, telecommunications, and media businesses. But I have a particular focus and GRAW, as they say in Ireland, in respect of data privacy, protection, cybersecurity, and all things that go with it. So yes, this was a very interesting investigation report. It was published by the Privacy Commissioner for Personal Data here in Hong Kong, the PCPD. And it involved a data breach involving an airline, or more specifically, an agent, a service agent of an airline, an Hong Kong airline. That the service agent was based in Vietnam. So what I'll do is I'll tell you the story, but also I'll tell you why I think it's interesting. So the story is this. There was a customer of the airline, and his baggage was lost or delayed. So he was going through the process of filing a complaint or a claim with the local service agent in Vietnam of a Hong Kong airline. Now, the service agent was looking to help, as all customer service people do, to help the customer as best as they could. And to do that, what they did is they provided samples of the claim form. So you could just imagine how this would happen, where the agent says, here, just fill this out. And by the way, here are 2 samples of 2 claims that were filed previously. So provided 2 samples, which contained all the information and personal data of the people who had made those claims. So therein lies the problem. The person who was filing the complaint with the airline at that time thought, oh, this is a bit weird. This is unusual. And in turn filed a complaint to the PCPD saying this seemed like an unauthorized use of personal data. I just needed guidance on how to complete the form, not someone else's sample or actual claim from a previous incident. And the Privacy Commissioner investigated and agreed. The outcome of it, and this is why it's actually quite interesting. There are a couple of interesting features about this. Firstly there's nothing wrong with the policies. In the policies of the airline, they said, you do not, you provide blank samples, you provide guidance, but it was very clear that it was a breach of the guideline and operations manual of the airline for the service agent to do what the service agent did. So the policies were fine. When it came down to identifying what was wrong, the PCPD highlighted 3 things. One was poor supervision of the agent, fair enough. But the other 2 were so interesting. One was a failure in respect of training in respect of the service agent, and then a failure in respect of the level of awareness of the service agent. So these magic words, training and awareness, as a DPO, you'll hear about them all the time. But here's an instance where there's a privacy regulation finding a breach of privacy laws and regulation by virtue of failures in training and awareness, and then linking that to a breach of the data protection principle relating to data security. So by reason of not doing training and awareness properly, it resulted in a security breach and a breach of that particular data protection principle, leading to the enforcement action and that was imposed by the PCPD on the airline in question. So that's what's really fascinating about it, is the fact that it was training and awareness, not the policies, not some bug in the system that arose or some failure to do patching, but training and awareness was the cause of the data breach. So that is a very, very fascinating case.
Padraig, thank you so much. I can hardly imagine a better example of the human factor when we talk about incidents related to privacy. So evidently, as a seasoned advisor yourself, can you describe to us what do you find as very effective in support of data protection officers of companies when they come to design project management programs and they have to think about providing training and awareness?
Well, you mentioned seasons. Some people say that I'm pickled, but we'll leave that one pass, Andrea. With training, maybe it's helpful first to explain a little bit what we mean when we say training and awareness program. So let's look at training. To my mind, there are maybe 3 or 4 levels of training. One is a level of training where it's simply the delivery of information, which is frequently a person standing at the top of a room, dishing out information to people who are trying to ingest that from listening to the person. It's good at a very basic entry level if you just need to get started somewhere. That kind of training can be an effective starting place. You need to get some information out there. But what you'll often find is that as soon as the person has stopped talking, the people in the audience have started forgetting. There's another level of training, which is then where the audience members, those being trained, engage with the content in some way. So that you'll find, for instance, through things like online questionnaires or surveys or things of this nature. And that's one level up from the simple delivery of information, because you have people who are being trained having to engage with content to provide answers to questions. So it deepens to another level of understanding. The next level of training is where people learn collaboratively and work out solutions to particular scenarios or situations themselves. So a classic example of this from the cybersecurity world is tabletop exercises, where you'll have different scenarios. And as those scenarios are broken out into team discussions, the people in the team discussions work out how they would respond to that situation according to their awareness of policies, procedures, and the best interests of the organization that they're working for. And then probably the most advanced level of training would be where people undergo real life simulation exercises, where you'll see this a lot in respect of breach simulation exercises, where rather than it being a distance to, say, tabletop exercise, where it can become a little bit theoretical, instead you create time pressure in the way that people are engaging with a simulated but real type of experience in respect of a breach simulation. And there you not only get how people will engage in terms of solving issues, but you will get people who will engage in respect of how they respond under time pressure in solving issues. And that's probably the highest level of training. So those are 4 different levels of trainings, and you would design training programs according to what the particular needs are and where the maturity of the organization and the people are. So it might be that if you are dealing with people who are, if you're doing a training program for people who are within, say, the IT or security department or team, that might be at a particular advanced level. But if you're dealing with people who are, say, as part of an induction program, the training at that level might be more in respect of delivery of information. And then you take that as a foundation from which you build further training programs to build on top of that. Awareness is different. Awareness is intended to supplement training by reminding people of what they have learned in the training. So the training is to encourage people to learn and understand policies, procedures, practices, and so forth. And the awareness is to remind people of those key principles at different intervals according to what the cadence of the training program might be. So there are things that you might do in that sense in terms of maybe updates or tips that might be circulated on email, poster campaigns that might go around a particular premises, certain things like, say, a phishing simulation just to see if people respond inappropriately to a phishing sample. So it reminds them in respect of the kinds of things that are used in the social engineering that go with phishing campaigns. So that's what awareness is about. And again, you design that according to what the particular purpose is. It can be a broad purpose. You might do something, for instance, in the course of a privacy awareness week, or it might be something that's quite specific, where you do, for instance, a simulated phishing targeted campaign to a couple of people, because you want to see how they respond to that specific instance that you want to raise awareness and levels for. So you design it according to that matrix, according to the people you're addressing, according to the maturity of the organization, and according to whatever has gone before or is planned in the future in respect of the training program and awareness program of that organization.
Thank you very much. First of all, you offer me the opportunity also to mention here quickly to all our audiences that PrivacyRules has developed the PrivacyRules crisis simulation, which is at the 4th level of what you have described to us just a minute ago. And I invite everyone to view information on our website concerning that. All the elements you have addressed pretty much refer to the fundamental key issue, which is the privacy culture that a company or an organization decides to adopt. Now, in your experience, can you tell us which are the main factors or challenges that prevent organizations to adopt a privacy culture that will be inducive of appropriate training and awareness policies and procedures within their own organization?
Well, I think you've touched on it with the key word culture. I think the biggest shift that has to happen within organizations is where they look at privacy and security as not a function of compliance, but a function of culture. So if you move from compliance to culture, then you look at training and awareness as part of what the organization itself is about. And how you make that movement is really through stakeholder engagement. If you're able to convince and bring senior leadership within an organization to the message and the principle that privacy by design, privacy by default, and all the processes that go with that are an aspect of core culture that needs to be resourced within the organization, then the rest will follow. The major challenges that I tend to see within the market that I operate is that there's more of a perception of privacy as being a function of compliance, which means that it's a cost and an expense, which means that it's something that is budgeted. That means that oftentimes where that budget is looked upon as a cost center, you are looking for ineffective training resources delivered sporadically in order to tick a box, rather than training that is appropriate to the particular purpose it's intended for, delivered by capable people according to a cadence and a system and a standard that represents what is best about the organization rather than the box to be ticked. And that movement is the core movement that needs to happen to overcome the challenges towards developing a privacy culture.
Padraig, thank you so much. I think this has been a very interesting and very practical privacy espresso that, in my opinion, will persuade any company to really focus on the training and awareness programs they will adopt within their organization. We always repeat that they don't have to be immediate and large scale. These are long-term investments that are included in the programs that Padraig mentioned in the years to come. Because then eventually something happens, like in the example of the airline, which ruins the reputation of the company and creates liabilities and costs generally way higher than adequate and effective training and awareness programs. We thank very much Padraig Walsh from Tanner De Witt today, our privacy and TMT expert from Hong Kong. Padraig, thank you indeed also for your incredible contribution to the PrivacyRules Alliance, and we'll see you next in another Privacy Espresso series soon.